Hello and welcome back to Heart and Soul's Yoga Life channel. My name is Henrike, and today I want to discuss with you 20 signs that you might have, or someone you know might have, hidden depression. Now, when we think about depression, what we usually think about is sadness, someone being in despair, having a really hard time, not getting out of bed, etc. So someone who can't function in the world as it is. However, there's a whole other group of people who we call high functioning depressed or smiling depressed, and you would never be able to tell at first sight that they are dealing with something underneath that's pretty big and pretty dark for them, partially because they might not even fully be aware of it themselves, or they might try to hide it, either because they don't want to make their friends and family worry about them, or because they are ashamed or they fear judgment, etc. Before I start, I just want to make you aware, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so this is definitely not a diagnosis tool. This is just about raising awareness, both for yourself, if you are experiencing some of these challenges, or to be able to be aware for your friends. So watch out, here come the 20 points for high functioning or for hidden depression. Number 1 is when you notice a change in sleep patterns. Usually you would hopefully sleep between 6 to 8 or 9 hours a night, sleep through the night as you would on a good day. However, when you are experiencing a phase of depression, you might either start oversleeping so that you are waking up tired, you don't want to get out of bed, and you feel like it's never enough. Or on the other hand, you might have challenges with sleeping at all. You might be worrying, you might be stressing out about stuff, having a hard time falling asleep, or you might wake up frequently during the night. Just watch those patterns of your sleep and see where it's at. If it's out of balance for an extended period of time, it might be worth looking at. Similar thing with eating habits. So another very common point that you might find in people who have hidden depression is that their eating habits change. And again, it's not always just about overeating, eating more, binging, or stuffing themselves with food that makes them feel better. But it might also be not feeling like eating at all. We've probably all been there, that after a breakup or after something really stressful happened, we didn't feel like eating at all. So both of these can be a sign, and that means they are not nurturing themselves properly. So make sure that you watch out for that. If it's yourself, observe your eating habits and whether they bounce back after a while or they stay in a space where you're not really nurturing and nourishing yourself properly. A third point is self-medicating, and that can take many different forms. It's basically all around numbing yourself, around taking the edge off. So a most common and unfortunately very society-wide accepted way of doing that is drinking. Other ways are taking all sorts of drugs, from smoking a joint to taking cocaine and feel like you're on top of the world again, or all of these other options that there are. It can be being addicted to gaming. It can be numbing out in front of Netflix every day, week after week, and basically not really wanting to go out, do anything, just forget about everything. And as I said, self-medicating. So finding a way of pushing all those feelings down. Another one you might find in people, and again, this is not only true for people in depression, but it's a very common one you see with high-functioning depressed people, is perfectionism. That they are trying for dear life to hang on to appearances, and that they're really obsessed about getting it right, having it perfect, looking perfect, and stressing out, putting really high pressure and high expectations on themselves, almost as if by having everything perfect and being in control, they could hold their life together and could hold things together as they are. Another one is toxic positivity. Now, toxic positivity may sound on the surface like that, really positive. So it's people who are all smiles, all excited, selfies on Instagram, constantly doing all the most amazing things. But as you observe those people, you start noticing that a lot of what they are doing is really wearing a happy mask, and that underneath it might actually look really, really different. So if someone basically never can acknowledge that they are down, never can question themselves, and it's always just about denying feelings and about looking the part, looking a great deal, you can start seeing that all that positivity isn't really for real, and that they are just avoiding facing what's truly going on in their life. Another sign, and that's quite common, is that people are just emotionally really erratic, that they are irritable, that they are stressed, that there's drama, that one day they might be really high flying, the next day they might be really down, they might bite their nails, they might be really stressed out, they might be really irritable and distracted. There might just be a lot of drama around those people. And unfortunately, what can happen then is that they are in that pushing away friends, and people are just taking a step back because it's really hard to deal with, when in actual fact the person who is in that high functioning depression and in this irritable state needs people to stay close and needs people to hold space and be there for them. But obviously in that kind of scenario they're not able to be the person who people want to be around. Another one is that they are struggling to express their emotions. So basically bottling up things, pushing them down, either because they are not actually fully aware of what's going on and they can't put a name to that feeling that they are carrying around, or because they are having such a hard time facing it that they will do just about anything to either numb it or push it away and get away from that feeling, just distracting themselves so they don't have to deal with stuff. Probably because they are worried that once they pull the cork out and it's out in the open, they won't be able to push it back down and will be flooded by all these emotions that they are trying to avoid. Another one is, and this may be a two-edged sword, is becoming obsessed with spirituality, obsessed with the afterlife, obsessed with a higher purpose, etc. Now, I'm a very spiritual person and I'm all for being spiritual and all for tapping into this. But what can happen here is that you can use this as a tool for spiritual bypassing. So for example, you come up with all these big explanations like, it's karma, this is just my lot in life, it's because of a past life that I'm here, etc. That can either be in a very practical way, them distracting themselves from taking responsibility for and dealing with the issues at hand, but it can also put them in a headspace where they are now questioning everything, where they are so lofty in their thinking and so high up there somewhere in the clouds. That's a very convenient place to be that allows them to avoid dealing with the actual issues at hand. So when you see someone not deepening a spiritual practice, but really throwing everything overboard and going all down that spiritual path and denying the reality of their normal day-to-day life, that's when you can start to watch out a bit more closely and make sure that they are not falling into that trap of spiritual bypassing. Another one is if you find yourself not enjoying things that you used to enjoy, whether that's friendships, whether that's people you are around, when you're just kind of numbing out and nothing that used to provide color and happiness and fun in your life, nothing really does it for you anymore. So you're basically just tired, you are drained, you don't really want to go out, don't want to do anything, you just want to hide away and stay in bed all day. When that continues on for a longer period of time is also something to watch out for. Similar to the overfocus on spirituality, there can also be this weird way of overfocusing on gratitude. Again, I'm all for gratitude. I tell my coaching clients to be grateful, to sometimes have gratitude diaries, etc. However, if this becomes so obsessive that it basically makes them deny what's going on. I'm so grateful for how good I have it. I'm so grateful to live in a Western country and not have to deal with really basic survival issues. I'm so grateful for this and for that. That you basically just invalidate what you really feel, that you are not allowing yourself to be with the truth and the fact that you have been feeling down lately, that you are sad, that you are not over, say, an old relationship or something like this. If you're denying yourself the reality of that, not healthy. Definitely focus on gratitude, but don't do that at the expense of being real with where you are at in your life right now. Another point is becoming a martyr, so going out and starting rescue other people who are even worse off than you are. Now this again is a two-edged sword, because if you have been in a depressed state, or if you're down and you're navel gazing and you're not really happy in your life, I would encourage you to go out and find something that has meaning and heart for you, where you're supporting a good cause, whether that's like at an animal shelter or with aged care, or someone who has young kids that need help. So to make it about someone other than yourself, that's a healthy and good thing to snap out of a depressed state. However, if that's all you are doing, and if you are obsessively putting your focus on other people, on rescuing others, and basically bypassing your own problems by focusing entirely on someone else's problems and solving them and fixing them, that can actually be a really unhealthy pattern as well, allowing you to completely deny your own issues. So if you do that excessively, or if this is someone you're observing in someone else, watch out, might be a sign of high functioning depression as well. Constantly self-blaming is another thing that you will see in people. So they will constantly be upset with themselves. They will be over-apologizing, constantly feeling like it's their fault, they have done something wrong. I always do this, I never do this, I always get it wrong. So if they're really putting themselves down in their own language, it's another point. Being addicted to worst-case scenarios. Again, something that generally by itself in small doses is a really, really healthy thing to do. Like, you want to look at your worst case scenarios in life to be prepared to be able to deal with them. However, if you do this constantly and you are constantly in this endless feedback loop of worrying, of thinking, of dramatizing, of not getting yourself out, of constantly seeing the worst thing happen to you, not healthy. Don't do that. Reaching out and then pulling back is another important point. So with this feeling of being depressed, there is something called vulnerability hangover. So we may, when we are in a state of depression, reach out to someone, finally say something, finally say we're not happy, we're not doing fine, we need help. But then when we have emptied out and really shared, afterwards we might feel really uncomfortable, we might feel embarrassed, we might feel that it's just too much and we can't handle it, that we basically need to put the cork back in the bottle to not stay in this discomfort all the time. And so when that person reaches back out to us and says, well, how are you doing? We spoke about it the other day, you didn't feel well, are you okay? That they will just be like, I'm fine, yep, no problem at all, I'm okay. So they will not actually acknowledge consistently that they are still not okay, but they will just snap back into pretending everything is fine. So reaching out and then pulling back, reaching out again, pulling back again. So when that becomes a pattern and you observe that in someone else or in yourself consistently, again, watch out, there might be more underneath that than meets the eye at first glance. Very connected to that element is a struggle with intimacy. That is also something you will see in people with hidden depression, because really intimacy means that somebody closely gets related to you. I know that someone once put it, or it's quite common to put it in that way, intimacy is into me see, like really allowing someone to see you in all your vulnerability and all your truth and all of who you are. But when you are struggling with a hidden depression, that in itself can be really hard because you're trying to deny it, you're trying to push it down, you're trying to not feel and not deal with those things. So for then to let someone else in your life and let them come close is really risky. So if you're on the receiving end of this, you might find that somebody wants to date but then shuts you out, wants to pull you close and spend time, but never talks about themselves, etc. So it's this constant push-pull thing. That can also be just a jerk playing games with you, but it might be a sign of hidden depression as well. Next is the need to be in control. We've had a similar point before, but this is even more so the need to have certainty. Like when you are in a state of hidden depression, it's often a real underneath sense of being out of control, of that anything could just come, the emotions could come and flood you and could knock you off your feet. So it's this trying to find ways of being in control, at least of some aspects of your life. So if a person is in that state, they will not be very experimental. They will not want to go out and try new things, go new places, meet new people. They're really trying to hold on to the things that they can control because the rest of their life may feel so out of control. So if you see someone being very, very controlling about their space, about their time, about their job, etc., might be a hint in that regard. Another, and this is actually a little bit sad, is they might try to constantly prove that they are valuable, constantly over-accomplish, constantly perform, constantly be top of class, always reaching to fill that empty void, that empty gap that they might have inside that tells them they're not good enough, they're not worthy, they're not lovable, etc. So over-accomplishing, much as it might look like someone is really on top of their game, if this is compulsive and it always has to be the best of everything, it might just be a sign that there is a really empty void on the inside that they are trying to fill. Changes in language. If we're going back to the very beginning of the video, we're talking about things that are changing, like sleeping patterns, like eating habits, like potentially getting intoxicated more regularly. This is another one. So changes in language. Watch out if people are starting to regularly put themselves down, talk about themselves negatively, talk about how they always do the negative stuff or they never can live up to expectation, how they should something or could something or would do something, but they're not, they're not good enough. Language of guilt, language of shame. So really listen to if there's changes in people's patterns and how they speak to themselves, how they speak about themselves, or how they express themselves and about their life. The second last is compartmentalizing feelings. So tying back in with what we've mentioned before about trying to hold on to control, trying to make sure that life isn't falling apart. If we feel inside really overwhelmed with our feelings, we feel really like we can barely stay on top of things, we can barely keep it together, we might try and compartmentalize. So for example, if at home things are really falling apart, and men are better at this than women, in general anyway, we might really try to leave all the drama at home, go to work, and at work function, put on the happy mask, be really successful, be really there at all times, and basically absolutely avoid even thinking of the compartment over there that we can't handle, that isn't going all right. We might go to sports, we might catch up with people, we might always put on that happy mask and try not to open Medusa's box, because we know that once those feelings get unleashed, once we really allow ourselves to feel, we might not be able to put them back into the box. So we're trying to compartmentalize and avoid getting drowned in that pain. And lastly, you will notice in people who have this hidden depression often excuses and cover-ups. You will notice that they have reasons why they couldn't show up. They have reasons why they couldn't stay. They have reasons why they've suddenly fallen off the face of the earth and only re-emerged like 2 weeks or a month later. So you will start noticing that they don't show up as consistently as they used to. They don't call, they don't get in touch very much. There's always some weird story or excuse. And if you try again to notice that in a person that you care about, don't buy into it. Don't think they don't care about you anymore. Really stay on the topic and check in with them. Reach out, make sure that the contact doesn't completely break off. So here are 20 signs of hidden depression for you. So now what can you do if you yourself are noticing that you might be a little bit on the edge of a few of those points or just straight up in them, or if you have a person that you really care about, that you want to make sure is okay, and you want to help. Number one is show up. Be there for them and be the safe person to talk to. Be the person that they can reach out to, that isn't judgmental, that doesn't immediately offer 5 million ways of fixing things, that doesn't dramatize. Like, what's really annoying is when you are in a very vulnerable state and finally choose to reach out, when that person then gets all anxious and stressed out and dramatic about you and your situation and starts making it all about them. Parents, we have to be really careful with our children here, that when our children share with us vulnerably what's going on for them, that they are having a hard time, that we are not becoming all stressed and flustered, because what will happen is that often the people who have just opened up will see that you're not dealing with it, will see that you're not coping, will want to protect you, and will therefore next time not want to share it with you. So be that safe person who can hold the space for them and just be with them in the feeling, not immediately needing to fix, definitely not immediately needing to make them feel better, but sit with them and hold space for what's going on. What you can do is ask them, how can I best show up for you? Who would you like me to be? What would you like me to do right now? Do you just want to sit here, want me to sit here with you? Do you just want to kind of be held in your tears? Or do you want us to go out? Do you want me to brainstorm with you what are options, what you could do, etc.? Like, really offer your service and offer your support in an unconditional way, on their terms and in the way that they need it. What is important is be aware that there's help out there. When it comes to depression, not every person is going to get suicidal, not every person is going to fall into the deepest, darkest hole ever. But you want to make sure that you get appropriate support, even if you are not depressed, but you are the support person for them. So what you can do is call helplines, for example, Beyond Blue here in Australia, and ask questions. They are there for depressed people, but they are also there for people who would like to offer support. Make sure that you fill your own cup and you are really looking after yourself and finding appropriate support. Like my son, for example, once had an issue that a close friend of his was talking about being suicidal, and he spoke to me. So instead of us going straight to the parents, which obviously would have been good, that could have cut off that line of trust and conversation that there was. So what we did was that my son went to the school counselor and asked for advice there of what he could do and how he could support and be a good friend without compromising the trust that he had with his buddy. And that was a really healthy thing to do. At the same time, you can always give advice that there are mental health care plans available. That's something that not enough people are taking up, especially those people who are high functioning and might not even be aware that they have deeper underlying issues. In Australia, you can get a whole series of sessions with a psychologist or a counselor on a mental health care plan. You just go and see your normal GP, and they can, when you share with them what the issues are that you're dealing with, can give you a mental health care plan, and then you're getting those sessions either for free or highly rebated. So it doesn't even have to be a very expensive thing to take up. So professional help is really important, because once you are in a negative spiral like this, you can't necessarily always see it for what it is or get yourself out, especially if it doesn't look like that sad, lying in bed, despairing depression that we are expecting to see. Anyway, thank you so much for sticking with me, for taking an interest in this really important topic. If you have any comments or any questions, please leave them down in the comments section. As always, if you are enjoying our content, please like and share the video, and you can always follow our channel and hit the bell button if you want to get updates on what we're coming up with next. Thank you so much for being here, and have a beautiful day.